Welcome, everyone. So at the end of this talk will be the halfway point of Hack Your Health 2024. So I'd like a quick round of applause for Robin, Ryan, the staff, and yourselves, because without you, this would not be possible. My name is Charles Mayfield. I'm a founder of Pharaoh Skincare and Mayfield Pastures. I love pigs. If you've had a chance to talk to me in the last couple of years, you know that. Not a lot of people know much about pigs, and so the last couple of years of my Lard venture have led me to believe that not a lot of people know about Lard. So this is going to be a very high-level discussion. We're going to touch on a couple of different things. My porcine pontifications will hopefully rouse lots of enthusiasm, but it's just really fascinating how a mainstay staple in our diet, textile world, and as you'll see now, even today, our medical field, it has just been lost in our vernacular. And so we're going to have some fun. I've got a little bonus for you guys at the end. A couple of bonuses, actually. Right, Maya? A couple of bonuses at the end. But hang in there with me. This is very high level. This is going to be more storytelling than science. You can't trademark or patent pork or lard. And so there's not a lot of studies going on. You're seeing more of that now. So first things first, I'm not much into, this is sensitive. I'm not much into credentialism, but I do have over 10,000 hours of raising pigs, cooking pigs, preparing pigs. And so I've sort of reached again, I don't like credentialism, but I do have a PhD. We're going to talk about that journey. So this is my mom and dad. From the year before I was born until I turned 35, we had the annual Mayfield Fisher hog cooking. And so I've grown up around pigs. The party before the party was actually July 3rd. Every year, we would gather at our local obstetrician's farm. He would raise these pigs for us, and the party before the party was someone every year got the honor of taking the animal, and then it was quickly shuttled off to a slaughterhouse to be scalded and scraped and prepared, and then it would go on the barbecue that night. So we never raised pigs. Coincidentally, the local town obstetrician was a farmer. His wife was my pediatrician, and I see a reemergence of the bonding between doctors and farmers. I see it. It's small, but I'm excited about that. Grew up in a farming family. My family's business was in the dairy, but by the time I came along, we were really more of a milk bottler, and so no dairy farm, a little bit, you go see some cows, but my farming curiosity would not really manifest until later in life. This is 2013. I got into the paleo scene through CrossFit, and my ex-wife and I published some cookbooks. This is our second cookbook. We were asked to go to Polyface Farms. If you're not familiar, I highly recommend a trip. We were asked to go to Polyface Farms for a fundraiser from the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. If you were at our Regenerative Ag panel yesterday, this was the year they launched. And so ironically, the title of the weekend was Save Your Bacon. And we were raising money for Farm to Consumer. They asked us to come up. So this is my first time. That's Joel Salatin. If you're not familiar, he's basically my de facto farming mentor. Joel and the Salatin family have been immeasurably kind to me with their time and talent. We're not going to talk a lot about farming today, but if you ever ask me a question, I'm going to tell you to talk to Joel. Shortly after that trip, I came back, and this is Todd Mussman, ironically wearing a Praise the Lard shirt. Todd is arguably one of the best porcine chefs in the city of Atlanta, and we had been very good friends for a long time. I trained back in my gym days. I trained his partner, and I come back from Polyface just eyes wide open, right? And so he walked me through how he breaks down a pig in the back of the restaurant, Local 3. Harry, you remember Local 3. If you go to Atlanta, eat at Local 3. And we broke everything down. They say the only thing you can't eat on a pig is the squeal. And we did a whole lot of cool stuff. Head cheese, porchetta di testa, an absolute treasure, but you have to debone the head. I decided not to show you the picture of the deboned head, but we made porchetta di testa today. I will tell you, Todd's the only person to ever serve me pig's blood ice cream. It's delicious. Pig's blood is basically an egg yolk. In terms of its nutritional value and fat, it's unbelievable, right? I don't recommend you go out. It'd be hard to find. But pig's blood ice cream. So Todd was really the one that, from a culinary perspective, really opened up my eyes. I mean, you literally can eat every single piece of the pig. This is I hope this video shows. Here we go. Is there sound? No. This is our first batch of pigs. So this is 2016. That's my daughter, Adeline. And you'll see Scott there. There's a really funny part here where she starts whining and like, all right, Scott, give your sister the shovel. Here it comes. Give me that.
Adeline's turn with the shovel, okay? Thanks, buddy.
So this is our first batch of pigs. Now, we did not birth them. Farrowing, our business, farrow as a verb refers to the act of getting mama pig and daddy pig together to make babies. Farrow as a noun is another term for a newborn batch of piglets. We're not going to talk a lot of farming today, but a couple things to talk about. If you want to get into farming and you have small children, pigs are fantastic. Everyone thinks about big pigs. They start small, and they will bond. If you feed them, highly intelligent animals, they'll bond to your entire family. This is a hand-built feeder. If you are getting into pig feeding or pig farming, please don't do that. Spend the money. You can see all this feed on the ground. That's just wasting your money right out the door. But this fencing right here, we're going to talk a little bit more about farming later. We think about technology. This is technology, okay? In farming, I can't emphasize enough what a technological revolution this stuff is right here. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Shortly after the pigs arrived, I headed off to Jackson, Mississippi. 30 years of Joel's pork raising knowledge condensed into 48 hours. This was a pastured pig school. So here's that same batch of pigs about 5 months later. Okay? Pigs are very destructive. Okay? I like to use the term disturbing. Okay? Because nature and the ecology need disturbance. You know, we have forest fires and things of that nature. This is an example of that destruction going a little too far, quite frankly, but they're doing what pigs do. Pigs can go from birth to market weight, which is about 250 to 300 pounds, in 8 months. Okay, and a mama pig will give birth to 8 to 10 to 12 piglets. So as a protein source, you know, if you finish a grass-finished cow, that takes 2 years. And so as a protein, we used to eat way more pork. We'll talk about that a little bit. But this is one of those hard lessons farming I learned early. Don't leave them anywhere too long, and if it rains, move them quick, because if there's water, they're going to make a mud hole. So fast forward to 2018, we decide to farrow. This is Olive. You can see Brutus in the background. Adeline's a little bit older. She showed up pregnant. We purchased her, and she was expecting. But this is Brutus and Olive. So we're getting into the farrowing game. That's Brutus, the gentle giant. He's a red wattle. So he's a red wattle. She's a Gloucester Old Spot, or a GOS. And then the pigs we started with were a Berkshire large black hog cross. He weighed in at about 850 pounds. Gentle giant. Brutus had one job, and he was good at it. Okay, this is our first farrow. Look at, I know, you get a couple of red ones, a couple of spotted ones, and a couple of mixed ones. They're sleeping on the nest. One of the few mammals on the planet, the female actually builds a nest, which is pretty cool. Another hard lesson in farming, this PhD was earned the hard way. So pig's gestation is 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. So you could farrow up to 3 times a year. Again, an unbelievable resource of protein. What I didn't understand was that mama can come back into estrus very fast. And so this is Olive in, I think, maybe a January or February day the following year. And this is our second batch of little bacon bits. And they're right in the nest. Who wants to pig farm? Right? This is amazing. So this is our second batch. We'll show you Mama. She's, Mama's up there eating. And one of the most dangerous things in regenerative pig farming is a recent mother or a pregnant sow. They can be very aggressive, but if you've established a relationship with that animal, so this is a handful of days after they were born, and I'm filming this on my phone. I'm right there, and so she knows me, she loves me, she trusts me, she knows I feed her, and so don't go to a pig farm expecting mamas to treat you the same way they treat their owners. So we worked hard. We studied. We raised beef. We raised chicken. We dug a lot of holes. And my porcine profession culminated in this. So this is January 1st. This New Year's Day, 2021. It's part of my job today is to recontextualize the pig to all of you. This ham, I grew it, I slaughtered it, I scalded it, scraped it, and then I hired a professional. There's a local man in our town that is a professional curer and smoker. That piece of meat is 4 years old. It hung in a barn, salted and smoked for 4 years. Now listen, you can walk out the front door here and find food in every direction at any time of day. But 150 years ago, 200 years ago, to be able to raise an animal, kill it, and preserve that meat for 4 years is, I can't emphasize enough. And so all of that is culminated in I mentioned PhD. We got our post-hole digger, pig handling degree. Frankly, I think the world would be in a better place if more PhDs were post-hole diggers. So I digress. So that's me, okay? And that's sort of that's the journey that brought me to you today. All right, show of hands. How many of you in the last month? Oh. Mic problems. Mic check. Better? All right. Show of hands. Who's driven a car in the last month? Driven a car in the last month. Keep them up. Keep them up. Fantastic. Okay. In the last 12 months, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. If you have raised, fed, slaughtered, butchered, and cured a pig. Okay. 130 years ago, 2 retirees ago, I asked that same question. Everyone in here would be as intimately familiar with the raising and slaughtering and butchering of a pig as they are driving a car today. So that's how far we've come from what is arguably the most important animal to our culinary past. These are all antique lard cans. So 1905, there's no grocery stores, okay? If you walk in your general store to buy your nails, buy your flour, buy your sugar, your shoe polish, there is a 100% chance that you walked out of that store with a can of lard, okay? We'll talk about this, but tallow, we made candles and soap out of tallow. Some people used it to cook with, but you would not walk out of the store with a bucket of tallow. You'd walk out with lard. My cousin's a junker and an antiquer. These are all lard cans in his house. They've actually, I don't have a picture of them. They've made can lights in their kitchen out of lard cans. It's absolutely fantastic. So who knows what's going on here? This is actually this spring down at White Oak Pastures. So that's Brandon from the Farmstead Meatsmith. So this is a guy that is bringing back the artisanal homesteader style use and evisceration. So right now we're scalding and scraping a pig. Pig, again, very different than a cow or a deer. You can take the hair off of a pig and leave the skin on. That ham you saw would not cure were the skin not on it and act as a protective barrier. And so that's one of the unique things about a pig in terms of the meat that we eat. Excuse me. And so so this is what was going on here. Again, recontextualizing. So this is the meat packing industry. This is I think this picture is 1902 or maybe 1899. This is the meat packing industry in Chicago, Illinois. It employed over 45,000 people, and they would process upwards of 15 to 18 million animals a year. Okay? Here's the catch. This is pre-refrigeration, right? This is really railroad in ubiquity. There weren't a lot of railroads. By this time, late 1800s, early 1900s, most of the pig farming in America had transitioned to what we call now the Corn Belt, Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, where we grow all the GMO grains today, right? Pig farming had transitioned there because pigs could glean the field. You know, our harvesting equipment wasn't as efficient today as it is today, right? And so you'd harvest a field, there would be grain everywhere. And so they'd raise pigs. Pigs are omnivores. We'll talk about more of that later, okay? They would herd pigs. There's no rails. Herd packs of 100 pigs. I forget the term for the pig herder, but here's your 100 pigs, take them to Chicago, take them to market. They would process those animals, you know, open air. You know, you try to get into a USDA slaughterhouse today. You can't do it. In fact, if you post a video from inside the house, they can put you in jail. That's fun. They would herd these pigs from the Midwest, hundreds of miles, no fences. When they put the rail lines in, coming out of Chicago to go west to the Corn Belt and further all the way to the West Coast, they leaned into the trails that the pigs created seasonally. And they processed those 15 to 18 million animals from November to March. It's not cold enough, and if you hang meat, for anyone that understands, if it's not cold enough, that meat will spoil and, you know, obviously hurt you when you eat it. Okay, so I'm going to separate. Pig history is all over the place. I'm going to separate some pig history for you. Pigs were first domesticated. We have records of this about 13,000 years ago. I would argue that's the oldest animal that we've domesticated for meat. You know, we bonded with a dog way longer ago, but that was a collaborative effort. And then there was another domestication about 8,000 to 8,500 years ago in China, the Far East. This first one happened in what is today the Middle East area. Once you domesticate pigs, you can start breeding them and self-selecting. So everyone's aware all dogs descended from the wolf. Well, every pig breed you see today descended from Sus scrofa, which is the original taxonomy of the Russian boar. Okay, again, I'm just trying to blow through this. Pliny the Elder wrote Naturalis Historia. This is 79 AD. Yeah, actually, he didn't finish it because he died when Mount Vesuvius erupted. Someone else finished it for him. But it's an old medical book. Pig prominently featured in it. Arguably the most famous concierge doctor from the Roman era. This is Galen. He was Marcus Aurelius' personal doctor. He's the founding father, some say, of these anatomy, physiology, neurology, and pharmacology. Credits most of his academic prowess to his ability to dissect and understand the pig. He goes into great detail about it in some of his works. I love this one. This is Anthony the Abbot, nearly between 300 and 400 AD. So Europe was plagued by a number of skin conditions, skin ailments in the 300s and 400s. He was a traveling preacher, so to speak, and he's often depicted with pigs, okay? I think he just came by it honestly because I think he would travel. You know, a lot of the ministers were healers, and if you understand pig skin and pig fat, it's been used throughout history to heal and feed your skin. And so I think he just gets these paintings because he was a skin healer, and he's not a pig farmer. This is Medicina de Quadrupedis. I don't recommend reading it. It's a medieval text, and there's some medieval shit in there. But the pig was featured prominently in this, medieval medical text as being a source of many, many healing ailments. And so we're transitioning now into my second half of pig history. Pigs are not native to the United States of America, or to North America, to the Americas, okay? First pig showed up, Columbus in 1493, his second trip over. The big one was De Soto. So De Soto brought 13 sows on his first voyage to Philovadia's home now, Tampa, what is now Tampa, Florida. Okay, 13 sows. Why would explorers travel with pigs? How long does it take to sail? How long did it take Columbus to sail to America? Like 3 months? 2 to 3 months? So you start your voyage with a pig this big that you don't have to feed much to, and it'll eat anything. And you sail and you sail and you sail, and if you get stuck at sea, you eat a pig, right? But he brought 13, so this is documented, dropped 13 sows off on probably what's Anna Maria Island this day and age, or one of the barrier islands off Tampa. When he returned 3 years later, there were 700 pigs waiting for him. So if I'm an explorer and I need food, I'm going to bring pigs along for the ride. Jamestown had pigs. I had to put this one in here. So Francisco Pizarro. So I'm putting this talk together. This is 3 or 4 months ago. And one of my Faro customers emails me out of the blue. I love these emails. He's like, hey, I was looking around. Did you know that the guy that conquered the Incan Empire was a pig farmer? Pretty cool. Okay, I say it all the time. The swine is divine, but the lard is hard. Okay? That's kind of the theme of this thing. Let's talk a little bit about why. The skinny on pigs. So this is what most people think about when you hear the term pig, right? I know you guys can read some funny side exploits for me. So pigs are highly intelligent, and they mature sexually very young. So if you ever want to know what 3 to 4 year old toddler humans would act like if they were sexually mature, raise pigs. It's fascinating, the dancing and it's watching Brutus court Olive for 3 or 4 years was an absolute treasure. They're one of the few animals that, mammals again, that are resistant to snake venom. We've been tracking pigs for a long time. I don't know, I think that's an evolutionary thing that because they're an omnivore, right? So they're a prey animal and a predator. And so I think that was something maybe they adapted to. Some of this is going to come into play later. Pigs are built to dig. The way their nose is constructed, they have this cartilage and prenasal bone. And I will tell you this, a sow's milk will let down. A piglet is born. I've been there. I've seen it. And they find mama. She's laying on her side. And they find her teats, okay? Have you ever heard the term sucking hind tit? It's a sort of a southern phrase. So the milk letdown of a sow increases anteriorly and decreases posteriorly. So that's a pig reference, because the runt of the litter is usually on the back side of her milk bar, okay? But to signal milk letdown upon birth and anytime it's time to feed, the piglets do a rooting motion. That is the mechanistic signal, and then mom will grunt. She will, when the milk's coming, she will grunt, and they go from this to latching on, and it's a feeding frenzy. They don't sweat. This is one of the things that sort of gets turned into, well, pigs are dirty because they don't sweat. They have the glands to do it. They use evaporative cooling. You saw the video of them wallowing, and that also works as pest protection and all sorts of things. They have very small lungs for their body size. They're especially susceptible to respiratory disease, and that's going to come into play a little bit later. This is not a complete list, but here's a number of the textile applications of the pig over the years. Now, most of this stuff has been replaced in the modern day, okay, by synthetics. Faro, my little cosmetics company, I'm trying my best to bring various aspects of the pig back into the textile, non-culinary market, right? Nitroglycerin, we're going to come back to that one. Buttons, oil, I mean, this is an amazing list, Fails in comparison. And this is modern day, folks, okay? So what we were talking about before has mostly been replaced. So this is you have to love pigs. We harvest oxytocin, the love hormone, from them and use it in humans, right? The love hormone. If you need any more evidence, Phil's in the room, if you need any more evidence of the biological significance and medical application of pigs, talk to a heart surgeon, okay? I mean, it's hard, everybody's familiar with organ transplants, right? And you want to match things up because you don't want host, what's the term? There we go, yeah. We take pig heart valves and fix human hearts. We train our surgeons on pigs. I know a bunch of people in the special operations world, and one of the final things to any special ops medic, they go out, they shoot a pig, and they keep it alive. Fascinating. I don't know what's more life-saving, an EpiPen or bacon, but both are important. Again, I mean, the modern day, they're an unsung hero in today's world when it comes to medical applications. I find all of this very fascinating. Who's getting a DEXA scan this weekend? Let's talk about lard for a minute. Yeah, so when you get your scan, where does lard come from? Okay, when you get your scan, they're going to give you two fats. What are they? Subcutaneous and visceral. Where does lard come from? Lard comes from the subcutaneous fat. When I say animal fat, what do you guys think of? Be honest. Beef. Tallow. Tallow's very hot right now, super hot. I love tallow. We use tallow in our products, okay? Tallow comes from the visceral fat of a ruminant. So it's a placeholder term, most commonly beef, okay? But you can have elk tallow, bison tallow, deer tallow, any visceral fat from a ruminant herbivore, okay? Lard comes from the subcutaneous fat of a pig. This is significant. This is why the lard is hard, okay? Subcutaneous fat is a storage organ. Visceral fat is a protective organ, right? It's kidney, it's your seatbelt for your kidneys. It's inside your organs. So whatever environmental, for better or for worse, dietary and environmental toxins or health that you store, that a pig stores, okay, that's going in its subcutaneous fat. That's where lard comes from. We also use leaf lard in our products. Everyone's like, what the hell is leaf lard? Leaf lard is the tallow equivalent, but coming from, if you hear the term lard, we're talking about the pig, okay? Leaf lard, which was a prized fat, if you read your great-grandmother's cookbook, it was a prized fat for baking. Because it's not a storage fat, but a protective fat, it doesn't impart, if a pig eats acorns in the fall, you'll get a nutty, quite amazing flavor out of their subcutaneous fat. So that little cap on your pork chop is just divine. You don't get that with the visceral fat, which is why it was prized as a baking fat. It didn't impart any flavor or smell to your pie crust, to your biscuits, okay? So that's where lard comes from, and leaf lard. How do we get them? So this is a little video. So you have two predominant rendering methods for lard or tallow. You have everyone's used to the dry method. If you've ever cooked bacon before, everyone thinks my product's going to smell like bacon grease because that's a dry rendering method. So you're sort of cooking it. There's no water involved. And so you're imparting a little bit more of a cooked meat, cooked fat flavor, smell to the fat. Most animal fats for jarred culinary purposes were wet rendered. And this is what I'm doing here. So it's low heat, a little bit of water. Fat rises to the top, right? So you put a little water in the bottom of the pan so nothing burns. And as it renders, the water stays on the bottom, and you see me sort of scooping it out there. So just how do we make it? That's how. Just some basic. Okay, so the swine is divine, the lard is hard. Okay, now this is a culmination of some of the data I looked at. There's not a lot of it, but some of the data I looked at for pastured pork. Okay, in the industrial pig scene, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. You're going to get different numbers. Now, the breakdown of fatty acids is probably a fairly consistent across all fats. But when you get into Max Lugavere's talk this morning, he's talking about the choline in eggs. Fantastic. Why not fry your egg in some pastured lard? Super high in choline, vitamin D levels. I would argue it's the best frying fat of all the. When I say fat, I'm talking about naturally occurring fats. None of this, industrial sludge that's in our world today. But a fairly good ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. Okay, got to raise a healthy, happy pig to get there. Lard is the closest exogenous substance on the planet to the oil that our glands produce. Humans produce human sebum. It's virtually identical, which is pretty cool. All right, so here's the second half of pig history. And again, this is pig lard history. It aligns with history in America. So we get our second taxonomy. So today I mentioned Sus scrofa. So in 1777, we get Sus domesticus. So if you look at any pig you see today, that is their taxonomy. Procter & Gamble starts in 1837. 1840, this is unique. We see the first recorded double farrowing of pigs in a year. I mentioned 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, but prior to 1840, there was no record of pigs breeding more than once a year. So this is sort of the beginning of the pork industry, right? Oh, we can have pigs more than once a year. Interesting factoid. Civil War. Significant to lard in 2 ways. One, the meatpacking center of the United States at the time was Cincinnati, Ohio. The Confederate Army blockades it, forces the Union to move all the meatpacking to protect their food supply to Chicago. But more importantly, the Union Army commissions Procter & Gamble. I think Procter was the candle maker and Gamble was the soap maker, or the other way around. The Union Army commissions Procter & Gamble to make all the soap and all the candles for the Union Army. Ladies and gentlemen, if the U.S. Army calls me today and asks me to make all the soap and all the hand cream for the United States Army, I'll put a deposit down on the private jet. We'll fly wherever they need me to go, and we will supply them. So this really legitimized and perpetuated Procter & Gamble as a company. 1890, we see the meatpacking industry really start to consolidate. It's in Chicago now. They start price fixing. Again, we made everything out of lard and tallow. So they start price fixing tallow. This pushes Procter & Gamble to start to seek out other fat sources to make their soap and tallow. They find one, cottonseed oil. They scale hard. They buy 6 cotton mills in Texas, and they start making cottonseed oil. Again, this is for soap and for candles. 1906, couple things. Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, is published. If you're not familiar with it, so he sort of did this investigative journalistic thing, went and worked in a meat packer house for, I don't know, like 6-8 months. Deplorable working conditions, as you can imagine, turn of the century, no HVAC, all the things. In his book, he features a fellow worker falling into a vat of lard and dying, and of course that didn't help Lard's reputation. We see the first tungsten light bulb patent in 1906, okay? Procter & Gamble's not a dumb company. Guys, we're making all these candles. What the hell are we going to do with all this cottonseed oil when no one's buying candles anymore? So they team up with a German scientist. In 1911, Crisco is invented, or hits the market, okay? This is Rockefeller. Again, ties into lard history. Rockefeller's oil company was broken up in 1911. Pointed basically all of his anger at the food and pharmaceutical industries, okay? And so some of this is sort of ultimately the fat phobia that we have today, the pharmaceutical prowess that we have today. This is the final nail. World War II was the final nail in the coffin of lard. We rationed lard during World War II from 1940 to 1944. Anyone want to tell me why?
It's a superfood.
What is it? It's a superfood? No. You can't make nitroglycerin out of cottonseed oil. Pigs are the bomb, y'all. But thankfully, since you can't get your lard off the shelf, we've got this handy marketing jar of Crisco for you. So this was really the nail that was the final nail in the coffin of lard as a ubiquitous cooking fat. You know, we still have it today, but and obviously Eisenhower's heart attack, I don't have to tell you guys about the lipid hypothesis and Ansel Keys and all that, but his heart attack was really what spawned all of that, which has certainly made the reemergence of lard difficult in the modern day. Also, what's going on, good Lord, I am just fit to be tied. Also, what's going on from here we are, over here. From here to here is we're starting to perfect refrigeration. We used to eat an absolute crap ton of pork, y'all. And most of the time it was fresh. A lot of times it was fresh. Because again, prior to refrigeration, you're a family, or you're a couple of families, okay? And I've got this 200 or 300 pound pig. Do I want to lug that around dead, or do I want to put a bullet in the head of this 1,500 to 2,000 pound cow? What am I going to do with all that meat? Because it's going to spoil within 2 days. So we really ate. What we're going to get into this. Let me move ahead. So this is what pig farming looked like from basically 1900 until the majority of pig farming until the 1960s. No fences, outdoor. Pigs metabolize vitamin D from the sun the same way humans do. The same mechanistic way. This is pig farming today. Now, it's not all pig farming, but it's 98.5% of the pork grown in this country grows up in this environment. Now, here are their houses. Okay, anyone want to venture a guess? What are those? Manure lagoons. Manure lagoons that every now and then bust open and spill into our waterways. Okay? What do you also notice about this environment? Indoors, lack of sun. Can they root? It's like, close your eyes and think about the one thing you love to do, and then just take that away, right? Crowded, shared air, small lungs. Well, we got to develop some drugs to keep these pigs from dying, right? This is abhorrent conditions. University of Oklahoma. This is the pork industry. This is a microcosm of the pork industry, but I felt like it was good data. How am I doing on time? Good. I want to make sure we got time for questions. Somebody tell me how much time I got, because last guy went over. 10? I got a problem with the last guy. All right. Low point for pork was 1987. So you can see a high point here. This is the state of Oklahoma. 1.3 million pigs, 130,000 farms in the state of Oklahoma that had pigs. If you had a farm, you had pigs. 10 per house, 10 per farm. Low point, 1987. Why? We can kill more beef now. We can keep it fresh. We can freeze it. Okay, so the beef industry as a ongoing non-seasonal foodstuff became significant. Also, what did we develop? It's the newest member of our culinary exploits in the protein world. Chicken. So in 1987, the low point, some of you are old enough to remember this, pork, the other white meat. Remember that? Why would they do that? Because we figured out that we can move pigs indoors. We got all this cheap grain now because we've been subsidizing grain for years. We got an opportunity here. Let's grow some really crappy pork. Pork's not white, y'all. It's a deep red. It's a rose color. I will tell you now, a pastured pork chop might as well be a completely different product than anything you'll ever find in the store. Okay? She's so sweet. So just to give you some context, right? One of my favorite places in the world, Polyface, they finish 800 pigs a year. Okay? White Oak Pastures down in Bluffton, Georgia finishes 3,000. Coincidentally, Will's got cabins too if you ever want to drop by there. It's an amazing place to visit. They also farrow all their own pigs, and he's actually he was the first farmer in America to bring over the Iberico-Spanish ham genetics from Spain. Yeah, their pork is dope. Joyce Farms. They're out of North Carolina. This is where I source my fat from now. I don't have the farmer hat anymore. I couldn't do it all. And very high integrity pork. They finish 750 pigs a year. The Tyson plant in Iowa, 9,000 a day. We love pork in this country. Unfortunately, most of them, they actually have talked about scheduling to shut this plant down in this year, sometime in 2024, which I'm sort of happy about because the pigs that go through that facility live awful lives, okay? All right, here we go. I'll let you read it. It's the closing line, right? Now, I'm gonna throw on top of Orwell, okay? I love Orwell, but we got to add Solzhenitsyn. The line between good and evil runs through the heart of every human, right down the middle, right? Pigs are great, and in the environment they grew up in today, they're pretty bad off, but virtually biologically indistinguishable from humans, okay? The point here today is to illuminate you about the significance of pork, and then also I would just challenge you to find ways to ask for pastured pork, meet your farmer, right? I'm over here in textile cosmetics land, but I gotta have the meat before I have the fat, right? And so I think that the pigs, we would not be here were it not for pigs. We owe them a great debt of gratitude, both historically and again, medically today, okay? But those pigs need to live great lives. If you want a pig farm, there's plenty of references. I'm happy to help you. But so that's the talk. Again, it's just sort of a high-level talk. Here's what I need from you guys. I want to get a TED Talk on lard. And so I got to condense this thing down to like 10 or 15 minutes. So if you'll scan this, it's Q&A time, but if you'll scan this, there's a survey you're going to get. I'll need your email address. There's a survey you'll get. I'm going to give you a super awesome discount on Faro, okay? But I need your help. I want to sort of get this buttoned up. Do you want to hear more about pig history or the medical applications or pig farming? You know, it's probably 3 talks in one, right? But the goal is to get on the TEDx stage because the lard works in mysterious ways and more people need to know that. So with that, I'll take your questions. I guess we just raise our hand in here. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about how the feed changed?
How the what?
The feed to the animals changed.
Sure. Well, there's a couple layers to that. For one, the efficiency with which we can harvest feed has gotten way better. So if you do this is one of the downsides to pork. They're a monogastric omnivore, so you do have to feed pigs. You know, they can't go grazing, which is another reason why they fell in popularity until we had such dirt cheap grains that it made sense to scale back up. But yes, genetically modified stuff, not good. There's a big argument about the polyunsaturated fatty acids, you know, high PUFA pork. I don't like to spend a lot of time there because I would rather eat high PUFA pork than Cheerios, so it sort of depends on my audience. Like, put the Cheerios down, buy the Walmart pork. Better than Cheerios. But yeah, I mean, you'll find videos of them chopping up like bulk throwing away food from like the supermarket, and there's microplastics in there. We can more effectively and efficiently feed pigs, whether in the industrial model or the regenerative model today than we ever have before. So it's a blessing and a curse. Okay, the way you can shift who's fed is with your consumer dollar. So does that answer your question? Yeah, I don't want microplastics in my pork. And I would prefer that their polyunsaturated fatty acid content be more in line. So go shake a hand, meet a farmer, raise a pig yourself. Listen, it's one bad day. It's not fun, but there's a reverence. You know, nobody here slaughtered a pig. It's the hardest job in America as far as I'm concerned. The kill floor is a tough place. I've been there. So that first batch of pigs I got, we had one that had some kind of disease. And I found out later the guy that sold me the pigs oversold his pigs and pulled one of my piglets from another farm, and we figured out that was where it was from. But I will tell you, I watched that pig. You know, I didn't want to do antibiotics or hormones or any of that stuff. I watched that pig suffer for about a month. We called him Tiny. I have another video where you hear Adeline say, Tiny, Tiny. So less than a month and a half into my pig exploits, I put Tiny down. And I'll never forget the day, ever. But those are some of the hard lessons that are absolutely life-changing from farming. More questions? Yes, sir. Oh, 2 minutes. I'm going over. The last guy went over. In the store? Well, okay, I'll give you one example. Hickory Nut Gap. They're out of North Carolina, high-integrity pork. Joyce Farms, high-integrity pork. I mentioned in the panel, eatwild.com. How do you know? Shake the hand of the person that's growing the pork. I would venture a guess, again, historically, if you had a farm, you had pigs because nothing goes to waste. Nothing. So I'm highly confident that you can find. I don't want to lean into food labeling at all because the minute it's pretty good, it's corrupted, right? Because the big food companies will figure out how to change the laws. Yes, sir.
You say shake the hand of a farmer, but if we don't know the farmer.
Eatwild.com. Eatwild.com. On my way up to this talk, I mentioned this in the regenerative ag panel yesterday. On my way up to this talk, where are you? You said you were coming. Right there. Or is that a question? Okay, on my way to this talk, someone stops me. Hey man, I went to eatwild.com. I've already emailed my farmer. We're meeting next week. It's an amazing platform. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I love that question. Yes. The narrative around what pork is a dirty animal, don't eat it. Okay? All right. It's mostly in religious texts, right? And if I were writing, who's been to a restaurant and eaten pork tartare? Anybody? You ever seen it on the menu? No. No, because they're a monogastric omnivore. All herbivores have a fermentation process by which they metabolize their environment. Completely different pestilence. You can cohabitate pigs and any animal, because they're end hosts for any viral stuff that's out there. But my point is, if you ate undercooked pork, you got to rewind the clock hundreds of thousands of years. Okay? You ate pork and it was undercooked, right? Because the whole village would partake. You kill a pig, everyone partakes. Somebody gets sick. If I were writing a text and telling stories about how to live your best life, okay, I would tell people that that's a dirty animal and you shouldn't eat it. Because Aunt Sally ain't with us no more, and it happened after this pork, and then the next month we killed another one, and then little cousin Billy's gone. So I respect someone's choice. I got to tell you, the 3 most impassioned porcine chefs I know on the planet are all Jewish. They're all Jewish. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I've heard people recently talking about they have to use a magnet when you go to the store.
A what?
Magnet?
Okay. Oh, because the metal?
I guess. I don't really understand that. So, do you
I don't either.
Okay.
Well, I mean, so metal would get into meat.
I get it. They put it in there to say, oh, you're getting magnesium, you're getting iron, you're getting whatever, but it just passes right through. I'm
going to challenge you to do 2 things. Go to Eat Wild, find local pork. But also, you don't understand the power your consumer dollar has. Every time, listen, it's going to take some work. Every time you walk in the store, I'd like to speak to the manager. Can you get me some local pork? Can you find me some local pork? I eat hickory nut gap sausage. I buy it at the Ingles store. They grow them like probably 200 miles away. And it's delight. I don't grow pigs anymore. I grew the tastiest pork ever. My kids love this pork. I know the owners. I've shook their hand. They're scaled up, so they're able to provide Ingles supermarkets in East Tennessee quality pork. All right, one last question. Oh, man. Go.
Anything about the production of pork in other countries? Like if you go to Europe, they have factory
I
farms?
had 50 minutes tops. We're actually working on a pork movie, so we might be going overseas. Yeah, I mean, again, human history, human thriving and pork history are just locked at the hip. It's unbelievable. I can't wait to go overseas and really study that. All right, one more.
When you're talking about pasture-feed pigs, so when you say pasture-raised, they root or they scavenge, but they're also fed? And what is?
No, that's a great question. That's a great question. We're going to end with that one. So one of the reasons that you don't see great pork numbers in some of the studies that have been done is because pigs are a rooting animal. You guys take a multivitamin, right? A pig probably eats 2 pounds of dirt a year, just rooting around, finding old grubs, right, and doing that thing. So that's their multivitamin. In a scientific setting, you can feed them the best stuff in the world, right? But they're missing their multivitamin, right? And put them outside, get some vitamin D. But I think that answers you. Ask it again.
As you feed the pig, how do you feed them? What do you
Oh.
feed them with? It's not.
Oh, we fed a non-GMO. We fed a non-GMO soy-free grain. That's what we fed. And I drew the line at quality at non-GMO because I know it's not sprayed with Roundup, right? Some people go organic. New Country Organics. You get into pig farming, you're gonna pay for it, but it's super high. But my attitude is if you guys ate the finest meals you could ever put together, okay? I'm glad this doesn't get talked about enough. For 60 days, everyone in this room gets to eat well, I don't know, we'll get Lisa and a couple of the other doctors here, and we'll come up with the perfect 60-day human diet. Highest quality, highest integrity meat. You know, if you're eating some carbs, high, organic, blah, blah, blah. But you have to live in a closet. No sunshine, and all your friends are in there. Y'all get to pick where you want to pee and poop, but you're staying in the closet. The environment does not get talked. Organic. So pastured pork is a label that you can sort of seek out, okay? But we don't talk about the environment. If you fed a human the best food on the planet but forced them to live in a closet, they're going to be sick beyond repair. And so this is another reason why, again, vote with your consumer dollars as best you can. Find a local farmer. Keep that money. You know, if I go to Whole Foods in East Tennessee, that money's going to Austin, Texas. And I love Austin, but I want to keep those funds, you know, and if you go direct to the farmer, they get to keep everything. They're not splitting it with it. I mean, the average meal in America travels 1,700 miles farm to plate. That number's probably gotten bigger because we're bringing in way more beef from overseas now. So that number's definitely grown, okay? And when you buy that meal, the dollars do not stay in your community. Now, it's going to feed the grocery store manager and all that fun stuff, but the profit, keep the profit in your zip code. Thank you all.